Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to recap SEC basketball over the weekend, which was primarily the SEC Big 12 Challenge. Blake, the SEC goes 3-7, a disappointing, but I guess not completely surprising result.
No, I don't. I've heard some people say that. I was hesitant on probably. Well, it's funny, the games I wasn't hesitant on, one of them went completely the opposite way. Of course, the Alabama Oklahoma game we're talking about there, but you kind of said the rest of them are basically toss ups in a lot of senses. I think when you just kind of looked at the matchups and could have went either way, and so yeah, I'm not stunned at all because I thought the SEC even getting to 5 would be a struggle. So yeah, I think with our predictions, I assume we probably picked the Big 12 to win. I don't remember what the exact number was, but just because we didn't do our final tally when we went through and picked all the games. But yeah, it just was not. I mean, Big 12 is the best conference in the country. I mean, what else do we say? Like, we're not gonna we cover the SEC, but there's no reason to act like the SEC is the best conference this year. It's not. And so Big 12 is the best. And I think just as we pointed out, teams like West Virginia and Oklahoma who are 2-6 in the Big 12, they're not 2-6 teams. And they are in the Big 12, but in most conferences they're pretty good teams, and
they're about 500.
Still, yeah. Now again, I wouldn't have said that about Oklahoma beating Alabama by 24 and being up 30, but still, I mean, as I said, they're quality teams, and so yeah, not a great showing for the SEC, but this season not really an unsurprising. I mean, it just was not that surprising, I don't think, in terms of the SEC losing the challenge. So.
All right, we're going to run down all these. We'll spend more time on some than others. Let's just start basically in order in which the games were played. Auburn leads the day off at West Virginia, falls behind big early, makes a valiant effort and a comeback late. I can't hit, I think, a three-pointer to tie it. Eric Stevenson for West Virginia, who played at South Carolina a year ago, had 31 points. And I think the computers had this as a 4-point game in West Virginia's favor. It wound up as a 3-point game for the Mountaineers.
Yeah, I mean, for Auburn, I think it's this was going to be a tough game. We picked West Virginia and thought that a lot of the reasons why is, I mean, this would be a game that would be pretty physical. I think kind of see how both teams play. There can be some things there from a stylistic standpoint that, a lot of similarities, and sometimes guys just have big games. And we saw that for, Eric Stevenson here for West Virginia. We saw that for Grant Sherfield for Oklahoma. Sometimes guys just go off, and he gets 7 threes, scores 31 points, like you said. And, that's just something that, if he hits 5 threes, Auburn maybe wins a game, but he hits 7. And, sometimes that's enough to kind of carry a team. And as I keep saying, I mean, the problem for Auburn, you get down 17, you can't afford to ever get down 17 on the road and feel great about your chances, but you're having to come from behind, and they just don't have a consistent element from 3. Yeah, they hit 6 of them, but how many guys hit more than 1? None, 0. And so I just think that's the issue, right? We keep talking about it. It's just when you're playing catch up. Well, yeah, and if you're Auburn though, and you're having to play catch up, it's just you don't have that consistent element to where you can just go off at any time and feel like you can hit those shots consistently, because there's not really anyone that you just is going to be able to do that right now. And so I think that was one of the things. But look, I also don't think you really come away with this disappointed if you're Auburn. You're disappointed you didn't win, but I still think that West Virginia team is not bad. I know they're 2-6 in the league, but everything just kind of came together. Stevenson has a huge day, and I thought some Auburn guys played pretty well. I mean, again, I keep talking about Allen Flanigan. How many games now in a row is it that he's had at least 8 points? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 games in a row now. So, like, you're getting consistency out of him. Jalen Williams, we've talked about him. I mean, someone that has to be a factor if they're going to win games, but, Broome, yeah, it's just that they just did not, they got in too big of a hole. Again, getting down 17 and having to play from behind, you just can't do that against anyone on the road, especially a Big 12 team. But I think, specifically in this game against West Virginia, it was just going to be hard to come back from.
Alabama's no-show in Norman was just astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the deal. I don't know how much we learned from that game. Where I think we learned about Alabama are the next 2 games.
Tuesday night.
Because they play Vanderbilt on Tuesday, then they go to LSU on Saturday. 2 games they should win by double digits, just based on how the teams have played to this season. Now, again, the Vanderbilt game, as we say, probably going to be close because just the way it works. But those are 2 games Alabama, you want to see them respond with just a different mentality than they had in that Oklahoma game. And like I said, I think part of the reason for that is how many times do you play a team where 2 guys go for 25 plus? And that's what happened. Oklahoma had the day they had to have to beat Alabama the way they beat Alabama. I mean, they're up what? They're up 32 at one point, with 2 minutes or something left to go. Like, that was a game where, as we always say, like when things start rolling downhill, it's really hard to stop it. And like for Oklahoma, you just felt like that was the case right from the get-go. Once they got going, they were hitting shots. You looked up and said, "Oh, Alabama's good enough to come back from this, but it's going to take something pretty special." And they weren't hitting threes, which is one of the things we said, right? We said, "Look, if your path to victory, Alabama cannot shoot the ball well from 3, that's one element of it." And they didn't. They went, 6 of 22, 23, something like that. Didn't make free throws. Just didn't shoot the ball well. And that was something where they couldn't stop Oklahoma. As good of a defensive team as
Brett
Alabama's
Sherfield
been.
was amazing.
Yeah, that's what's. I mean, he was great. Jalen Hills goes for 26. Sherfield for 30. I mean, 2 guys, 56 points, or 2 guys scored 56 for Oklahoma. Alabama had 69 as a team. So that's just one of those things where, I mean, do we read more into it now or do we read more into it after this week? I would tend to think I would rather read more into it after this week because how they respond to something like this. This is the game. Alabama hasn't had a game like this season. Gonzaga game was not that. The UConn game was not that. That was just a whoa,
Yeah.
And so how do they respond? I think that will tell me a lot more about this Alabama team. Because remember, not just they lost to Oklahoma. They're coming off a game where they didn't play great against Mississippi State, but they won. And so that was at home. Now I think I really want to see if they're able to come back. They beat LSU by 40 the first time. They beat Vandy by 12, but that game was maybe not as close there somewhere. It was up 20-something at one point. I would want to see the same thing if I'm an Alabama fan from those 2 kind of games after this, because if they come out and struggle, who knows? They lose one of these games, then I think we have to really start seriously looking at it a little bit further and to kind of look at the Mississippi State game, look at the Oklahoma game, try to figure out what's going
on. By the way, internet connection on my end isn't great this morning, so if it comes through on your end, we apologize. Next one, and this might be the SEC's biggest moment, Missouri, Blake. Not only did Missouri have a lot of guys score double figures, which that happens with Missouri, that's not unexpected, but the defense, Missouri really played it, holding Iowa State to 61 points. If Missouri defends just a little bit, this is the team that has proven to be really dangerous, and it certainly was on Saturday. I think it pretty much controlled that Iowa State game most of the way from what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I told you, I said I feel like I'm going to look back and think I should have made this my upset pick, although my upset pick still somehow came through.
Yeah.
I know how it happened, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, another huge win under Dennis Gates, and kind of again a huge sort of setting, a chance to really add that punch that this Missouri team needed, I think, on its NCAA tournament resume. And like we said, to this point, they've been a team that's avoided the bad losses. And now it's just a matter of how many good wins can you rack up? And this was another great opportunity for that. And yeah, they came out and controlled it. And the reverse mojo pick continues to work for me with Missouri. Every time I pick again, I'm going to pick against them in big games because that's what I like to do. But it hasn't always worked. But I mean, what do you say? I'm telling you, this team, you look at the trio.
Can I interrupt you a minute? We're going to do power rankings in a few minutes. I'm going to be very interested where you have Missouri this week.
Oh, I know exactly where I got them. So
okay,
they're not 1, by the way, folks. I'm not putting them at number 1. But Kobe Brown goes for 20. Demoy Hodge goes for 17. Isaiah Mosley goes for 8. Now I know that's like, all right, well, that's 8. But still, I think you can tell when those 3 guys are on the floor together, it presents a lot more issues defensively for other teams. Now, that's where having a Nick Honor hit 4 threes, right? That makes it even tougher, is when he's making shots like that. And again, you have that, trio that we just talked about on the floor at the same time. This is such a hard team to defend. And it goes back to like, look at a guy like DeAndre Golston. He's, may have some ups and downs, but like when DeAndre Golston gets going, he can score. Like we can see that we've seen that a lot this season. And
Yeah.
there's just so many examples of that. And, I thought it was pretty interesting to see kind of the rotation in this game where, I mean, what? They play without Gomillion again. And, Sean East gets 22 minutes. Golston gets 24 minutes off the bench, but he just kind of rolled with that group of 7 there. And, so I think that's kind of interesting just to see, rotation wise, what they look like. But something you said, I don't remember, it was not long ago. You said when we get in some of these games where we have the elite offensive team against the elite defensive team, we usually pick the elite offensive team. Well, we picked the elite defensive team this time. And once again, Missouri just happens to be the example.
To be fair, Iowa State's pretty good offensively too, but yes.
They're okay offensively. I wouldn't say they're great, but they weren't great in this game, but I think they more lean on their defense than they do their offense. That's just my opinion. But I just kind of look at, I think that was part of it. It's like, and it kind of ties into other things we've said is the problem with Missouri, if you're playing them, is when they get a big lead, they're just so good offensively that, it's kind of hard to come back against them, like, especially again, unless you're just an elite offensive team, because they're going to get their points. And they did that against an Iowa State team here defensively. I mean, you look at their numbers this season, they've been very impressive. We talked about the turnovers, right? 2 of the teams in the country that force the most turnovers. Well, who won that battle? Missouri won that battle. They turned them over 19 times. And yeah, this was a very impressive performance from Missouri, no doubt about it. And this makes you a lot more confident, in them moving forward in terms of building that NCAA tournament resume. Not a lot of locks in the SEC right now, but this was a huge step for Missouri towards getting to that point.
Yeah, to clarify something, Iowa State is 65 in adjusted offensive efficiency. I think they were in the 50s before the game. So good, but not great, I guess is a good way to put it. They're not an awful.
Their defense helps their offense, I think, because they are
definitely
turnovers.
Yeah, they're definitely ahead defensively over offense, but just want to clarify that's not a bad offensive team. Next one, and we won't spend a lot of time here. LSU loses, 76-68 to Texas Tech. That game came down to the wire. I didn't leave completely discouraged for LSU because it finally got scoring from somebody else. Adam Miller had 28 points. I mean, 68 points seems like for LSU seems like 100 for a lot of teams, given the way LSU has struggled to score. I guess if you're maybe fishing for a bright spot, there's that. But Texas Tech was also 0-8 in the Big 12, so there's also that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you come out of. I mean, Adam Miller goes for 20, KJ Williams 14, Derek Fountain 10, Cam Hayes 9. I guess it's a little more balanced scoring wise, but it's just still. I mean,
well, didn't the last game? I don't think LSU even put anybody in double digit scoring last time out. Of course,
here's the thing.
That happens when you score 40. But
here's the problem. Like they really had to win that. They had to win that game because they go to Missouri next. They're home against Alabama. They go to Mississippi State. They're home against A&M. Oh man, yeah.
LSU, we will be seeing you in Wednesday night.
Yeah,
when we are covering the SEC tournament in Nashville.
The schedule just does not let up until. I mean, I guess the Georgia game looks a little more manageable now on the road against. It's February 14th. That maybe Valentine's Day. Maybe that's all LSU needs. Is a little hug,
a little love,
a little kiss. That's it. Like that's what they need at this point. So we may do a special video for that game if this streak is still going. But we're not making fun of LSU, but it's brutal to look at where this is at right now because. Remember, we talked about this storyline back in November. We said if you look at the schedule, this is as tough of a first half of a schedule as I've seen in a long time. And the way it's playing, that was the thinking that Texas Tech would be better than they are, too. And so lose this game, Texas Tech snaps their streak. It's a good thing they did, too, because you look at their schedule the rest of the way. Oh, my. They're 0-8 in the Big 12 right now. If they get to 2 or 3, I would consider that a success at this point. but LSU had to have that one. They didn't get it, and your reward is to play at Missouri on Wednesday and then come home against Alabama on Saturday.
Okay, you called it. I didn't believe it. You were right. Mississippi State 81,
Well,
TCU 74. Yes, I know
like an
Mike Miles
asterisk on that.
Jr.
I
got
think
hurt.
yeah.
But I mean, look, they played a brutal schedule. LSU was due a break somewhere, right? And they definitely got one.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, excuse me. LSU's also due a break, but
Well, I mean, the Mike Miles injury just completely changes, I think, that game. But hey, I'll take credit for the pick because I said that was the one I just had a hunch on. Now, I didn't think it would play out
you
like
did.
that. But yes, any way you slice it, it's a significant win for Mississippi State because they're a team that we said is also in that conversation of their overall resume is not as bad as you would think for a team that's 1-7 in league play. So now, okay, they get this big win, so that helps them a little bit. But now it's like you gotta scurry a little bit to get that conference record back to a respectable point. And this was a nice boost to at least maybe say, all right, maybe getting this win can help you if you get to like 9-9 or something. Maybe it doesn't take 10-8. Because you get a win over a TCU team that, in all honesty, again, the Miles injury is certainly worth monitoring. I can't remember exactly what they said on that. I don't think it was
an ankle.
I don't think it was as serious as maybe it seemed.
Okay.
But I need to look because I know it. Yeah. Okay.
And by the way, for people that don't know, he was the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year.
Yeah, so let's see here. He hyperextended his knee, so it was not as bad as it could have been. So that's encouraging for TCU, and that would make me think that TCU is going to be just fine once he's back, and they'll be a top tier seed in the NCAA tournament. So that kind of helps Mississippi State there, I think, but it's a huge win too because again, you're talking about a team that had lost 5 in a row. Had really been struggling for a month now. Had that close call at Alabama, and that's one of the reasons why I thought. I think they can build off of that. Yeah. And they do, again, in a different circumstance here. I think it would have been disappointing if they had lost, given the Miles injury very early. But credit to them, Toulouse Smith, 11-13 from 2 in that game. Just has a monster game.
13.
Yeah, I mean, just has a monster game. And they had other guys step up too. Like they had help. And I think that was just, Chris Jans put out his, we call them the Fab Four, I guess. Like, who was it? Smith, Jeffries, Davis, Matthews. They all played at least 36 minutes in that game. So he rolled with them. They got to the free throw line. I just thought, it took overtime, but you know what? That's a win that Mississippi State kind of had to have at this point. And I think that helps them a lot now going into a much more manageable part of their SEC schedule, I think. So maybe that's kind of the momentum boost here that they needed to get that tournament resume on track.
Well, I thought it was going to come unglued. Did you see how the end of the first half went the last minute?
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
That was about as bad of a last 20 seconds or whatever it was as you could play.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, before we go on to the next ones, betting $11 to win 10 stinks. With BROTHROW, you bet 10 to win 10. It lets you bet in all 50 states because it's not the house. Bettors have a fair chance at winning. It is the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. No minimum bets, no deposits, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. There's a hassle-free process in sign-up that lets you get in the action in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. Get in today and ask to join our private group while you are there. Okay, Blake, next one on the schedule. Arkansas goes to Baylor. Gets down early, has a really strong, last 10 minutes of the first half, but just can't close. But really liked the way Arkansas played in that one. It just didn't happen for them at the end.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was always going to be a tough game to win, but got down early, fought back with a great stretch. What were they up at half? 6 at half, I think. It's just a good game. It was a good game, and I came out encouraged by Arkansas's play in that one. Now, once again, you needed big games, right? And that's what we saw a lot of these SEC Big 12 Challenge matchups. Is just some guys come out and just have big games. Ricky Council goes for 25. Keontae George goes for 24 for Baylor. LJ Cryer had 20. So, just some pretty good performances. And He certainly like, maybe a couple of those turnovers back a little bit. They didn't shoot great from three, but that's not, they kept it at 14. That's kind of my magic number. If you're a bad 3-point shooting team, just maybe keep it around 14. And, um, it was a tough game, right? I mean, Baylor doubled them up basically from the free throw line. Arkansas, and we always say this, right? Especially that's a team I think that has to get to the free throw line to feel really good about their putting up a lot of points offensively. And again, that was going to be hard to do against Baylor no matter what, but they only get the free throw line 11 times. So those kind of numbers, I think, stand out a little bit when you watch that game and kind of knowing the foul situation. You kind of expected Baylor to get there a bit, and they did. Because I think the defense I thought was pretty impressive from Arkansas here because, you kind of watched the way that game played out, and I thought that was most encouraging. You kind of saw Arkansas with a kind of a good defensive mindset. And look, they were in a position to win the game. And I think that's all you could ask for playing on the road against a Baylor team that, as we said, has really turned things around after that 0-3 start in Big 12 play. So, I mean, yeah, I come out probably a little more encouraged with Arkansas, even though it's a loss, because as we said, we think they're starting to turn it around in terms of getting that SEC record from 1-5 to potentially 5-5 here. Huge game on Tuesday against Texas A&M. But yeah, I think that's look, if you win it, then you really, you're coming out on all highs. Like you're just completely in a good spot. But it's a close loss, but I think Eric Musselman can take some things away from that game that he feels pretty good about with his team here moving forward.
Tennessee wins the battle of the UTs. I think controlled that game pretty much from start to finish. I didn't get to watch much of the first half because my son had a ball game and I was watching on my phone. But look, the Vols, we've talked about the defense, but listen to this, Blake. Kumwa, 22 points. Ziegler, 22 points, 10 assists. Vescovy, 12 points. James, 14. When this team scores, it's just about impossible to beat. Now, the defensive numbers weren't quite what we're accustomed to with Tennessee, but hey, you beat Texas by 11 points anywhere, anytime. You'll take that, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, this team is just, I mean, they're, again, when they can score, when they can do what they did offensively in this game, I mean, it's like they may be the second, third most complete team out there. Um, at worst, I think, just because they're so good on the defensive end and they make things so difficult for everyone. And yeah, I mean, to get the performances they got at Kamwa here, just what goes for 27 and 8. Ziegler goes for 22. And I think, again, Ziegler hitting shots from outside is huge for them. Of course, has 10 assists. Yeah, it's game's a lot easier when you hit shots. Like the game just becomes so much easier. And I think for Tennessee, it's like if they're hitting shots, like ring it up. Like that's it, because it's just they're gonna defend. Texas wound up getting 71 points, but what was it? Texas had like 40, I think, with 12 minutes to go in the second half. Tennessee's up 20 or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's just that is a Tennessee team now, and spoiler alert, we may have a change in our power rankings this week. We'll see. But like they are a complete team. And we said they've gotten everybody back. That's huge too. But Rick Barnes leaned on his top guys here and he got a lot out of them, and credit them for, getting a very nice win over a Texas team that has played pretty well, as we said, for a while now. Even beyond, the whole situation coaching wise, and good win for Tennessee. And yeah, I mean, don't look now, but like they are really doing, they're playing well. And I think, again, for me, it's just going back to they got everybody back in the fold. And when they can do that, they have a variety of ways that they can beat you, variety of ways they can attack you offensively and defensively. And they're just, yeah, they're a lot of fun to watch when they get going.
Florida was uncompetitive in a 64-50 loss at Kansas State. Couldn't find outside shooting. Castleton was good. I guess the headline is Keontae Johnson. Well, it wasn't the headline because Noel had a triple-double, but maybe it was the headline because Keontae Johnson playing against Florida with the double-double was a much-discussed point too. But from the Florida end, what did Florida have? 16 points at half? I mean, it wasn't – I don't think that one was ever a game.
Did Noel have a triple double? I thought he missed it.
That's what the
I thought he missed it. I don't know. I'm gonna have
oh
to.
no, it says flirted with the first double-double. My apologies.
He almost had it though. I think he had 9
Triple-double.
rebounds, 8 assists.
I was gonna say a triple-double would be hard to get when you score 64 points.
Yeah, well, he almost got it, so it's
Almost.
not bad. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we kind of came into it and said, look, this is just for Keontae Johnson to be doing what he's doing this season. Goes for a double double here, and yeah, it's just I don't know, like it's something about just watching that game. Like it's just I don't know, it's one of those sort of interesting visuals. Just given you remember what happened, and you're seeing him now play, against his former team. Like it's just I don't know, one of those games, but. Yeah, I mean, Florida, my goodness, it was not pretty. But you know what? We didn't expect it to be that pretty, I don't think. I think there were some people
No,
out
I
there
would have
thinking
been
this.
shocked had Florida gone and won that game.
Yeah, some people expecting this to be maybe an upset pick. I never felt great about that. I don't know. I think with Kansas State, as we said, that's a team that is really doing so many things well. And, we talked about Jerome Tang, our love for him and what he's done with that team. And Florida couldn't buy a shot. And when you can't buy a shot on the road against the top 5 team or whatever they were not long ago, you're going to have a hard time winning. And they just couldn't. I mean, both teams defended very well, but that's kind of what you expected, I think, in this game. But Florida just, once again, when you put yourself in a situation where you get off to a bad start, you can't score consistently, you're not going to win this kind of game. And so, I mean, you look at it from that standpoint, and yeah, it just was not a lot to gather from this game. It was sort of, I guess you could say it's disappointing from Florida's standpoint, but probably not all that surprising.
Other than Alabama, I thought the most disappointing outcome was Kentucky losing to Kansas. And it was a good game. Kansas was not as bad as a team that came in on a 3-game losing streak. That's just what happens in the Big 12. But credit to the CBS podcast guys. They talked about this on Sunday night. Kentucky had that lineup. What is it? I think it's Shebway, Frederick, Reeves, and I can't remember which other 2 guys. It's been hands down their best lineup. And those guys didn't play together at all in the first half. Kentucky's what? 2 of 14 from 3. Is that what it was? I mean, you just keep waiting for this team to do something of significance. And so far, all they've got is the win in Knoxville, which is not insignificant. That's as good a win as anybody's had all year. But you really wanted to see Kentucky start stringing stuff together, not just wins, but meaningful wins. And the Cats let us down here.
I don't know that I feel the exact same way, because when I watched that game, what I saw was Kansas hit some big shots at the right time. And I thought some of those, Jalen Wilson just like, he had 22 points, which 22 points is a lot.
What did he average? 31 coming in the 3 games prior to that? I mean, it was crazy.
Well, I think it's when he hit some of those shots. I think it's the same. Like for some of the other shots they hit, they just hit some big shots at the right time. And Kentucky had some bad possessions at the wrong time. And I think that's kind of what it came down to for me. Yes, I thought it was disappointing too. We both picked Kentucky to win. We thought, this is kind of that. I still don't come out of this though that completely disappointed with Kentucky, because I think that you do have to give Kansas some credit, because here's what was mentioned. I think it was Billis that said this, but everyone else kind of echoed this before coming into it. Chris, this game was exactly Kentucky playing at Tennessee. It was just flipped in terms of who the team was that needed the win the most. Like Kansas needed this win. Like Kentucky needed this win, but like Kansas on a 3-game losing streak, getting ready to come back and play Kansas State, Iowa State, and Texas. Never had a 4-game losing streak under Bill Self. History kind of told us that we probably should have picked Kansas because it's never happened before. You're like, well, the setup is bad. They got to go to Rupp. It just never happened. It still hasn't happened. They had to win this game, and they did. I think, to me, this game was more about Kansas than it was Kentucky. But your standard at Kentucky is to win games like this.
Well, I don't know. When you're now 14-7, it was a lot of this. It was about Kentucky too.
Yes, but I'm not saying that Kentucky played great. I am saying
Yeah.
that this to me was way more kind of about what Kansas did and the fact that they came into this game in a situation that Kansas has never been in before under Bill Self, ever, with a
Yeah.
potential 4-game losing streak. This was Kentucky felt, I mean, Kentucky felt like they had bottomed out after that South Carolina game. But they go in a game they absolutely had to win at Tennessee. No one thought they could, but they absolutely had to win it. And they did. They found a way to win that game. Kansas, yes, people thought they could win this game. They weren't in a must-win scenario from a tournament standpoint. But backs against the wall, they heard it all week. Bill Self's never lost 4 games in a row. They come out and I thought they played well. They did some things really well. And so I think you have to give Kansas a lot of credit here. But at the same time, yes, you can also be disappointed that Kentucky didn't win. You can also be disappointed that Kentucky's 14-7. And yes, they lost another kind of big game. But still, I think you can see some things that are changing. It's just, can they change enough to get Kentucky to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament? That we don't know yet. But you got to get to the tournament first. And so it will be interesting to see how they kind of regroup here because, like you said, I think Cal, as usual, like there's some things that probably you would want back if you look at kind of how they manage some different things. But only hitting 2 threes, it's going to be hard to win a game like that when you have a team that you feel like you have 2 3-point shooters that need to be able to give you multiple threes a game. We're talking about Reeves and Frederick here. And so as a team, you have your worst 3-point shooting performance of the season. Combine all that together, it's going to be hard to beat a team like Kansas that kind of felt like its back was against the wall after a 3-game losing streak.
Oklahoma State blows out Ole Miss in Stillwater. Matt Morrell didn't play. We said we felt like he had to play for them to have a snowball's chance at an upset. He did not. Ole Miss lost by 22. Hasn't looked good in a while. And I don't think that'll improve morale at all.
Well, morale is only going to improve with Morrell. And
Is that a T-shirt?
yeah, maybe. Even then, I mean, look, it's a team that, yeah, I mean, our opinion on Ole Miss is kind of set at this point. I don't really think it's changing this season. And so, yeah, I don't really know, I guess, what to say about this game. Like, it was kind of what you expected. Maybe not a 22-point game, but maybe if you think that Morrell's not playing, which you didn't. We said that, they were kind of talking about they were hopeful to get him back. They just couldn't get him back. And so, I don't know, man. This was probably one that we talked about was going to be very low in the order of games. In terms of confidence level, this is probably one of the higher ones in terms of picking Oklahoma State here, just because we've kind of seen Ole Miss without Morrell, and it's just a different team. And again, even with him, they were going to have a hard time winning this game. So, credit to Oklahoma State. That's about all I got for this one.
Georgia had a hard time beating South Carolina, needed overtime to do it. And that is one that Georgia lost. I don't know, probably an overstatement to say that could have sent the season spiraling in a different direction, but certainly that's one that, like, if you're fighting to stay out of the Wednesday night session of the SEC tournament, you could not lose to South Carolina at home, which Georgia just escaped doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like I've seen some opinions on South Carolina after this Georgia game, and I mean, they hit 13 threes. I mean, what do you say, right? Like, you got a chance to win.
I've got some stuff for the power rankings on South Carolina. It's just this team. I mean, look,
yeah. if you hit 13 threes, you at a chance to beat a team. Because remember, what was the recipe for success in Kentucky? They went 11 of 20 from 3. Their second best, at that point, it was their best 3-point shooting game of the season. Now they hit 13 of them against Georgia for their highest 3-point shooting output of the season. So you always got a chance when it plays out that way. But give them credit. They had nice scoring balance because they did have guys. We talked about it. Kentucky hits 2 threes, right? Different setting. But, South Carolina had 4 different guys at multiple 3-pointers. Like, that's just, that will keep you in a game and that will give you a chance to win. And so they did. They came out, and I'll say this, all right? I think even just for that game to play the way it did, and I do think a lot of it just had to do with making shots because, like I said earlier, that makes the game a lot easier. give them credit for it's a tough season for Lamont Paris. Let's be honest. First year coach
Yeah.
in the SEC, knowing that
Not
you're
a lot
coming
of
into the
talent.
season. Yeah, when you come into the season, you're probably going to be the worst or second worst team. I mean, they keep playing, right? It's just give them credit because I know that's not an easy spot to be in. And so give them credit for that. They had a chance. They were right there. They can learn from it. I think there's a lot they can take away from this game because they're up what? They're up double digits in the second half. And so I think you can take a lot away from this. Most importantly, maybe we just keep shooting threes because that'll keep us right there in the mix. But Georgia had to have that win. They had to. They lose that one. You're talking about a 4-game losing streak going into Auburn and A&M next. So that was as must win as it got for Georgia. They managed to sneak by 2 challenging games ahead. But yeah, I mean, this Georgia team probably kind of settling back into that tier that we ultimately probably should have expected them to be at, even though they were playing ahead of that a couple weeks ago. But yeah, a good win because it's a good win because you couldn't lose that one. So that makes it good just because anything coming out of it with anything other than a loss has to be considered a positive for Georgia.
Final game of the night. Vanderbilt goes to College Station and darn near pulls off an upset. Led at
Shocker.
half. Yeah, that's what Vandy does. It just, if you haven't seen our channel, the constant, it's not a joke. It's just the Vanderbilt plays everybody close, good or bad, and you saw it play out. Vanderbilt, I think A&M had 2 different runs of 10-0 in the second half and still didn't wrap this one up till the last, I don't know, 15 or 20 seconds for sure. Miles Studi hit 7 3-pointers for Vandy, which played again without Liam Robbins. I'm hearing he may be back sooner than people think, which we thought when that happened he might be done for the year. Henry Coleman went for what, 18 and 6. I thought it was more than that, but anyway, or 16 and 6. A&M gets balanced scoring, hits its foul shots, and is now what, 8-1 in the league?
7-1 in SEC play now for the Aggies. Once again, making threes will make your life a lot easier. Miles Studi said he decided that himself. He said, "You know what? If we can get some threes, we got a chance here." So yeah, he goes 7-14 from 3. Again, it's like if everybody wonders why we bring up the 3-point shooting numbers so much, it's because the league is so bad as a whole. And this is not our opinion; it's just data. It's not a great 3-point shooting league, and we bring that up because when you do have some of these just huge outputs, it can significantly change the game because the other teams, just from a trend standpoint, it just kind of tells you it's not always going to be that way. So the SEC is still 32nd in conference games this season. Out of 32 conferences, 32 shooting 30.9% from 3 as a whole.
There were 31 last week, so they passed somebody or someone passed them.
Maybe the Independents moved forward.
The SWAC has jumped Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Vanderbilt.
Look,
Vanderbilt
defense matters too.
The SWAC has jumped the SEC.
Well, as we said,
shooting.
Defense matters too. A lot of elite defensive teams in this league. But I don't think the 3-point shooting is great overall as a whole. And the numbers seem to support that. So that's why we always bring that up for any new people to the channel. But yeah, I mean, Studi kept him in it. He gave him a chance by, making as many threes as he did. And A&M, what do we keep saying? That's an A&M team in terms of offensively, what do they do best? They get to the free throw line. And what are they shooting this one? 30-something? 36. So that's what they do. This is how they play, and this is how they have to win, and they figured that out. And I like teams like that because they know what they have to do to win. They understand the game plan, and I don't think you ever see A&M. That's one thing that stood out for me in this turnaround. You have not really seen them go away from what works. They continue to kind of do the things they do best, and that's why since December the 20th, they have completely changed their season. Is because they're playing better defense. They're defending a lot better. They realize, you know what? Here's what we do well defensively. That's what we have to do to be a better defensive team. Offensively, we know we can't shoot great from outside, but we got to get to the free throw line. We got to attack. They do this stuff, and that's why they are where they are right now. 7-1. They keep moving closer. Vanderbilt win doesn't do much from an NCAA tournament resume standpoint, but They
But
keep
it
in getting
avoided a
yeah,
damaging loss.
avoid a bad loss, and you're 7-1. We keep talking about that magic number in SEC play for A&M. 11, and you're safely in my opinion. You know, but we'll see.
I'm not as sure.
Well, I mean, I say that, right? It depends on who the wins and losses are against. You can't lose to Georgia, LSU, and feel great. I mean, yeah, right, understood. But I still think, we talked about given their remaining schedule, they have quality win opportunities and good ones at that. Their three best ones: Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, as of right now, all going to come at home. So all huge win opportunities for A&M. I think they're. We made our prediction before, whenever a couple days ago. I said right now, if I had to predict they're in, my prediction stays the same. I think they get in.
Yeah, we can unpack some of that later in the week when we do our NCAA tournament bracketology, whatever we're calling it, on Friday. We got a lot of stuff coming up. We're going to do power rankings in just a moment. As we do this on Monday morning, we will have, goodness, we got baseball content coming tomorrow. We'll have recaps of the Tuesday and Wednesday games. We'll have predictions of the Tuesday games. We'll probably have those up Monday morning as well. Blake, am I forgetting anything?
No, subscribe to the channel. You'll
Football
know when all of it's up
content, too.
there. Hit subscribe. You'll know when all the content's there, because if you hit subscribe, turn those notifications on, you'll get notified every time we put something up. So times may change, days may change, but you will know if you turn those notifications on.
All right. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.